Okay,
Hi, I'm Cindy,
I'm Kim.
I'm Tiffany.
and we're going to look at a really complex learning profile. So, Kim, give us a little backstory without giving us too many details. So, this kid went to an evaluator in the Seattle area, and
A very high evaluator in the Seattle, I should say highly regarded evaluator, to find out what the issues were. He was 15 and he was evaluated because he was struggling in school, diagnosed with ADHD when he was little, but just was not doing well with the how intelligent he was and trying to figure out what to do next.
Mhm.
okay, so we're going to let people take screenshots of scores if they would like. So, we're just going to scroll through very quickly.
That was fascinating. Well, whatever.
I'm counting to three.
Oh, okay.
You can pause the video as well if you need.
Oh,
Yeah.
true. I forgot.
Um, and if you want to, you can kind of do an overview of yourself and then come back and hear what we have to say about this. But I always encourage people, especially if they're a diagnostician or a psychologist, to kind of sit down and look at numbers themselves and try and think about what they think might be happening before we kind of jump in and do our big analysis. It's really good, really, really good practice. Okay, so anything stand out with the IQ?
Really good. I
Yeah.
Smart
mean,
kid.
college bound.
Okay.
Mhm.
Anything else?
Mm,
His
Is it
coding.
coding?
Coding is low. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, I find it interesting that scores are clustered as tightly as they are. That's kind of an atypical profile. We normally see a lot of scatter in what I do, right? We have kids that have numbers all over the place. And we're calling this individual Harold. Harold's fairly well clustered together. We have a little bit of a difference between matrix reasoning and figure weights. So, matrix reasoning, untimed, figure out patterns, and figure weights. How do you balance a scale with relative value of geometric shapes? So, you've got a standard deviation difference between the two.
Oh, so those two should be closer together, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Okay. So, why would figure weights be low?
I don't
Mm,
know.
Failure to respond within the allowed time limit.
Oh, that'll do it.
Okay. Now, interestingly, so you notice the processing speed is a standard deviation lower than working memory, more than a standard deviation visual spatial, more than a
Mhm.
standard deviation of verbal comprehension, and almost two standard deviations from fluid reasoning. Okay. So this clinician did not do any processing speed tests, but we're going to see some uneven performance on some speed based measures later on. Okay.
Is there
So go ahead, Tiff.
is there a reason why some people do the processing speed and choose not to? Or is it just
Um,
depends?
it is another test to buy and it's more time, and you have to prioritize. If you only have a student one day, what are you going to do and why?
Got it.
I I always start with processing speed because
Mm-hmm.
processing speed tells me which IQ test I'm going to use for this very reason. If I have a kid that shows up with average processing speed, then I know
Yeah.
to be very bright. I would not go with a Wechsler. I would go with a Stanford Binet. And if they're younger, I would go with a KABC
Mm-hmm. Got
because they have the ability to take the speed component out, if
got
that
it.
makes sense.
This
Okay.
is an embarrassing question. You just said that you always give processing speed first, but the processing speed is part of a particular IQ test. I don't get it.
There's other ways to measure processing speed. So the
Ah,
Woodcock Johnson cognitive ability has processing speed scores on it.
okay.
And I always start with those because A, they're relatively fast to administer, but B, they're fairly sensitive.
Oh, interesting. So you always figure out processing speed
I
first.
I that is the very first thing I do with any student coming in for a full evaluation.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
my suspicion is Harold would have benefited from the Stanford Binet. And the
Oh.
reason I know that, and by the way, I just started looking at these numbers this morning, but the reason I know that is look at that applied problems of 141. So
Wow.
1/5
Wow.
of the Stanford Binet, 1/5 of the Stanford Binet is quantitative reasoning. And if you're really good at figuring out how math is applied in the real world, then you will likely do really well in the quantitative reasoning section of the Stanford Binet.
Wow.
Mm,
And for that speed-based piece that I was mentioning, the Stanford Binet has one timed subtest. Okay.
Mhm.
Many of the subtests are timed from the standpoint of they don't want kids spending 3 hours trying to solve a problem. But the manual specifically says if a student is making adequate progress, you allow them to continue to work. Okay.
yeah.
And the majority of kids that come through my assessment have the ability to do high level stuff. And so I use the Stanford Binet. Now, the WISC, pretty much guarantee you can get it done in 90 minutes. I've had
Okay.
the Stanford Binet take me up to literally 5 hours.
Wow.
Mm.
That's why
Okay.
people don't like to do it.
That's why people don't like to do it. However, it gives me data that
Yeah.
is super valuable. And for me to
Mhm.
be able to go back in and say, look at what this kid can do if you give them time.
Yeah.
And here's all the horsepower under the hood, right? That's that giant earth moving machine that could crush the little zippy Indianapolis 500 car,
Mhm.
right? But
Yeah.
can only go so fast. There's a
Yes.
ton of power there, but
Right.
just cannot get the speed up. Okay, so that jumps out. So now let's go back in. And the clinician did a couple of interesting things. So, children memory scales, by the way, and this was administered several years ago. So, it was on the edge of being out of norms. Like, I would not use the children's memory scale anymore because it's so freaking old now. It's over 2 decades old. Okay.
Mm.
And
But
this is testing for
it's
memory
another,
recall.
it's a memory battery. So,
Okay.
on stories, you read them a story and you have them tell the story back. And then 30 minutes later, you have them tell the story back, and then you ask them multiple choice questions about the story. Okay. And notice there was difficulty recalling the story immediately
Yep.
after the delay. So when I see the score go up a scooch, that means that the kid told the story almost exactly the same after the delay and didn't lose anything.
Mm-hmm.
Not like he suddenly got better at telling the story. It means that they didn't really change. There wasn't a natural decay. All of us, if we heard a story and then we asked people to retell the story 30 minutes later,
Right.
normally people lose a little something along the way. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't. Now, what is interesting is he struggled to recognize facts from the test,
He struggled to recognize facts from the
from the
story.
stories that he listened to.
But he could still recall like as much from the delayed recognition.
Well, it's okay. His nose is slightly above water, but it's not phenomenal. Okay. And this is really important. So, A, I think the IQ is an underestimation, but B, this verbal memory being low is
Mm-hmm.
really important because people are going to look at it and say, you're a really bright kid. You're choosing not to remember stuff.
Hmm.
Ugh.
And that's absolutely not the case. Something is going on with this kid's oral language and memory
Okay.
that is affecting his ability to tell what he has learned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's another really fascinating thing. So on dot location, you show a page and it's got dots on it.
Okay.
Take the page away, and then you give a kid a board and they put the dots where they saw them on the page.
Mm-hmm.
Faces, I show you a series of faces and I say, remember this face, remember this face, right? Over and over again. And then you have to recognize the face that you saw before.
Yeah.
And notice that the score is down in the 16th percentile.
Yeah, from the dot versus the face.
We have a
Right.
really, really
Yeah.
dramatically different gap. Okay.
Wow.
Kim, you said this individual is likely somewhere on the spectrum.
No.
No, you didn't?
Well, I mean, no. They
No, you said
tested
there's social emotional stuff going on though, right?
maybe, yes, difficulty
Okay.
there.
So the challenge with the memory for faces, uh, ADHD diagnosis or not?
Extreme.
Okay. And on stimulant medication for this,
Yes, yes.
but we don't know if it's fully therapeutic.
That's the
So,
part I don't know. I know they worked very hard to get it.
so what this tells me is he can come up with a schema to remember the locations of the dots, but when he sees somebody, he can't create a mental image of the face
Ah,
with the detail to then recognize it.
oh.
Okay.
Mhm.
Which makes making friends really challenging.
Wow, really?
That's
Why?
the social aspect. Because
Tiffany,
they
why?
don't, maybe they don't remember or they feel like stressed or jumbled, especially with names or faces, putting that together. And then that also would it correlate to not only recognition, but also communication, right? Like remembering like what they like, what they don't like, and having that
Yeah.
coverage.
So remembering the characteristics associated with the face or the
Yes.
personality?
Now, here's the other big difference. So remember, the dot location is minimal visual information, right?
Yeah.
I'm just looking at blue dots on a board.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at a black and white image of a face, there's tons of detail there. And so while I could remember a very simple image,
Mm.
he had difficulty recalling the more complex image.
Mm.
So does this relate to also like what the test earlier you were saying with the story, but this is
Mhm.
also on the visual aspect of it.
Yep. Okay. So this is a kid that could set something down and never remember where he put it.
Well, but that's kind of ADHD, but you're saying it's more than that.
Yeah, I'm saying it's more than that.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay. This would also be a kid that would have a hard time if you, and this is perhaps an unusual example, but hopefully it resonates with people. If you show somebody how to set up a lab apparatus in chemistry
Uh-huh.
class, right? Like you do the
Yeah.
demo lab
Yeah.
setup, and then you rip it all down, and the next day kids come in and set up the lab.
Yeah.
You'd have a hard time remembering how to set it all up unless you had a picture of it.
But
But I would say I mean,
that sounds very familiar to me
yeah, very
Yeah.
familiar to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
because I have that problem.
Yeah.
But that's
Okay.
visual memory?
That's visual memory activity.
Okay.
Okay. And so if you can't remember what it looks like when you look at a math problem, you're recreating the wheel every time to figure out how to work the problem because you don't remember what the overall schema looks like. Like if I say, imagine in your mind what long division looks like, you can create a mental image of what long division looks like. Okay.
Right?
Okay.
But for him, if he sat down and tried to remember mental images of more complex things, he is theoretically having to go back and figure out how to work the problem unless he has done the algorithm a ton. So, how did he do on SAT?
Is it
I
don't know.
Okay.
is it
Well, and
similar?
I could be completely wrong, but um,
But some of the stuff smells like dysgraphia too,
mhm.
because he can't remember pictures of equation. Because like in his applied math, what does applied math mean? That
The
he got a
applied math is
99.7.
yeah. So applied math are real life problems like a TV was on sale for 30% off on the
Ah.
floor A,
Uh-huh.
or um, was normally $450, now $325. Which one's the better discount?
I see.
So you have to think through the math, right?
Okay.
So it's an untimed test, and
Mm-hmm.
you can take as much time as you need to work the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he may be recreating the wheel every time to figure out how to do it.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, okay. Here's the thing that bothers me the most about this evaluation
What?
is I don't feel like there was any really looking under the hood to figure out what could be going on neuropsychologically.
Look
So
at his
we've got rapid automatic naming as an issue,
Yeah.
right? But
huge.
she only did one of 6 subtests, and objects is not the most sensitive. Letter number and letter number color is the most sensitive. And so to do objects is like, why? Why did you pick that one? And by the way, you've got the C top. Why aren't you doing number and letter naming on the C top?
And the reason why you want her to do this is because this is an attribute of dyslexia, or
Right. So the rapid automatic naming is a giant red flag. Okay. And so I find that, so I like the Kaufman's rapid automatic naming more than the Wyatt or the RAS or the C-TOPS rapid naming, because it's got 2 trials. Okay. So you do one, and then now we're going to do it again. Remember, do it as fast as you can, and you do it again. And what I see happen for a lot of kids between the first and second trial is the first trial is fatiguing, and they do even worse on the second trial. Or the first trial, like they give it a shot, but then when you say as fast as you can, they go, oh, I'm going to go even faster. And that second trial, they can actually speed up and go even faster.
Right.
But when you do it the one shot, if a kid's like not geared up for it, you got one data point, right? It's too bad, Kim, you don't have a big enough mug of coffee there.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so we definitely have flags for dyslexia with the rapid automatic naming and the phonological processing. But because it doesn't pop hugely on the Woodcock-Johnson or on the Gort, he probably did not get diagnosed with dyslexia.
Nope, I don't think so.
And
You're seeing symptoms.
yeah, and I will tell you that most clinicians don't record, despite the test publisher saying you should record, they don't record the passages on the Gort. And so they miss a lot of errors. I have done the Gort so many times, I can actually give you the passages. I can actually say them aloud because I've listened to them so many times. But I still make mistakes, and I always go back and listen to the recording. And so the reason it doesn't pop is twofold. One is I think the IQ is low, and 2 is if it's not recorded and you miss errors, you're not sensitive enough to really figure out what's going on.
Interesting.
The other major problem I have with the Woodcock-Johnson with the word attack is on the 3 and the 4, they did not have an audio file for how word attack should be pronounced.
Yeah.
So it relied on the clinician knowing how to read a phonetic representation of a word to read it correctly.
So for
And
people to
that's
understand,
in a population where 2/3 of the world would benefit from direct instruction and phonological processing to teach reading, and they haven't had that instruction.
so these are fake words, parents, that sometimes in our English language, it is tricky. There can be multiple ways to say things, but there is a correct way most of the time to divide words into syllables.
Aff is a nonsense word.
Yeah.
Bloit is a nonsense word.
Yeah. And so if you don't have a recording from the testing company that tells you what's supposed to be, how it's supposed to be
correct decoding of that.
How are you gonna assess and correct this test correctly? I don't know.
Right. Now the Woodcock-Johnson 5 now has that, and it provides here are the acceptable pronunciations, because you can have minor dialectical variations or whatever. The KTA's version I think is phenomenal. Like there's some where there's 4 possible pronunciations, and the guy who reads them, like, it's beautifully done, really nicely articulated. So he doesn't pop here But I would point out that for a kid with as high a verbal comprehension skills with similarities in vocabulary, I am somewhat disappointed by the passage comprehension, but it's not the passage comprehension you think it is. So,
Wait.
Kim, when you think of this one, what do you think the passage comprehension
Okay,
subtest
wait.
is?
I'm sorry. Where are we on this page?
On the Woodcock-Johnson
Oh,
test
there we go.
example,
Okay, passage
passage
comprehension.
comprehension.
Wow. So are they making him read aloud or is this silent reading?
It's silent reading. How do they test comprehension on this one?
They're asking are they asking inferential questions and facts? No.
No. You read a sentence or two and there's a word missing and you have to fill in the missing word.
Oh God. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
which
difficult.
pounds on word retrieval,
Oh, interesting. And word retrieval is a huge problem with dyslexia.
right? So, do I think his passage comprehension is that low? Probably not. Do I think his word retrieval issues affected his passage comprehension? Absolutely.
Mm.
And by the way, on the passage comprehension on the Woodcock-Johnson 4, you have the student read it and then they get about 30 seconds to respond. And if they don't respond within 30 seconds, you're supposed to move them along.
So this is truly not a representative of his ability to comprehend passages because it's hammering on his disability, which is word retrieval, which is associated with dyslexia.
Which, by the way, is completely hidden in all of this.
Mm.
Because once again, I think the IQ score is wrong.
You think IQ score should be much higher?
I think the IQ score is higher. I mean, look at this recalling sentences at a 17.
Oh my God, 99%.
Yeah, you've got the 141 here. You've got lots of places where he scores
Like
really,
crazy high.
high.
Yeah.
And, you know, blending words is a 14 and blending non-words is a 15. And it's like, what the heck is going on here
Wow.
that
So
nothing got picked up?
this is so disappointing that, I mean, he doesn't realize what his abilities are.
Right. Right. And you as a parent, you go to who the school says go to, right? Or you go with who is under your health insurance and what you can afford. And then you get this report back and you're like, okay, now what? And you have no place to go.
No.
And so if you went back into the clinician would look at it and say, well, everything's okay. I mean, there's these occasional weaknesses, but there's really nothing wrong because all scores are at grade level.
But didn't she see the phonological processing stuff? Like segmenting non.
Well, but a 9 is in the average range, is what that clinician likely is thinking.
Oh, and can I make a comment too? Since his IQ is artificially low, the discrepancy of 1.55 is not accurate. It's going to be much greater discrepancy.
I suspect, now I have not met and talked to this kid, but from what you've told me of backstory and what you've told me of this kid is doing, there is more intellectual ability than actually shows on the IQ test.
He is so smart.
Okay. And so I think part of the reason that this clinician couldn't do more is because they couldn't find it. By the way, following directions was not administered. My apologies that I forgot to delete that one. All right, let's look at this really interesting oral language profile.
Okay.
Recalling sentences, nailed it. Why could he recall a sentence but then couldn't recall a story, Kim?
Because it was a smaller amount of information and he could visualize it.
Yep. And if the clinician didn't record the sentences and go back and listen to the recording, it's very easy to miss mistakes.
So when she sees that, she
on recording it.
But like, so when she sees that, she goes, "Oh, he's not dyslexic. He doesn't have a problem."
Right.
So she's all okay.
Do you understand how nothing pops for her to be able to say, "Here's where the issue is"?
Because she didn't dig deeper.
Right.
Well, because again, if the IQ is wrong,
A lot of things.
right, and if you don't calculate discrepancies, you don't know what you're looking at.
You have to have discrepancy. Did she count? Yeah, I don't think she did.
He doesn't. Most clinicians
So then it's
don't.
like
Most clinicians go to the DSM and say, do we have these characteristics? Yep, click, okay. If they're savvy enough to understand how it is expressed. So and I shouldn't comment too much on that because I have not been through their training on diagnostic assessment. And so I look at it from a different lens. But school psychologists look at discrepancies all the time. But again, it's not solely about discrepancy, it's why was the error made? It's not just a number, it's what happened and what did we see on that tells us something else is going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, there's another really interesting score that everybody has overlooked. It's on this page.
The non-literal language.
The non-literal language.
Yeah.
Okay. So on the non-literal language, it's basically idiomatic language.
Ah.
She was as cold as ice.
Mm-hmm.
So he's having a hard time interpreting those or is not responding within the allowed time limit on that. And the score may reflect that rather than the understanding. I would want to go back and look at the actual errors on that to get a better sense. But also inferences is not particularly strong.
Yep.
So it's a really interesting and complex profile. By the way, I hate the new towel. So the towel picks nothing up on this kid. And the spelling on the Woodcock Johnson is fine. I use the writing fluency all the time. I hate writing samples because it doesn't measure production at a passage level. And, I can understand why the clinician said, I don't have anything to really tell you. But this is a kid that would have benefited from coming to me to let me kind of pull it apart again and really say, let me show you another way to look at the numbers and let's do a different IQ test to see what pops.
Wait, did she do any very visual motor integration?
No visual motor integration.
Are
She
you?
did do array complex, and I didn't throw that in because that one's a really kind of.
I thought she diagnosed him as having.
Did she diagnose him as having dysgraphia?
I feel like because he got an accommodation.
Okay.
But that's also a problem because he can't express himself and he has intelligent thoughts.
Yeah. Okay.
Wait. Oh, wow.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of complexity in this that at first glance looks like it's an average kid.
Yeah.
And I think there's more there that was just missed.
But how many times do you see average kids that get 99.7 scores? Is that normal?
Very often.
Right. So that's
Less
a little strange.
1% of the population.
Right. So to me,
that's like, bing, hey, something ought to call to you that there's a problem there.
But if this kid understands now and gets retested or gets an IQ, and then he can realize he can do many different things.
Yeah.
That he didn't understand why it was difficult.
Yes. I feel bad for this kid.
Yeah.
He's an amazing person. Okay.
So the kid needs an updated evaluation with a different IQ test, with stimulant medications, fully therapeutic, and administering a different battery in some areas to begin to elicit and pull out different parts. I would look at rapid automatic naming differently. I would look at word retrieval, so naming within a category fluidly. I want to look at visual motor integration in more depth. I am also wanting to pull apart more higher order oral language. I want to know more about what happened on the non-literal language and the double meaning. I would look at the self-metalinguistics with him to see what's happening there.
What does that mean, self-metalinguistics?
Yeah, it's a different way to look at how language works because it's more direct application in the world. So lots of things that I would want to go look at, but not everybody has the time or the resources to go look at.
But this kid can do anything.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
Yep. questions or problems or like this, we always love to hear from you. And we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Bye.